Welcome, folks, back to West Coast Media Solutions. Today, I want to talk about what we did with the land that I had bought in Belize back in 2019, and why I decided to sell that land. Well, we decided basically, my husband and I. Um, actually bought the land before I met him in 2020. Is when I met him, and I had bought the land back in 2019. So, anyways, here we go. So, for those of you who also follow me on TikTok, a couple of years ago, I made this little video on TikTok that shows the land, and I'll just play it real quick for you guys. I thought it was a cute little video. I forget which one of those apps I use.
Here I come.
Baby, I got issues, but I love myself. Baby, I got issues, but I love myself.
Here I come.
Baby, I got issues, but I love myself. Baby, I got
All right, so enough of that. Anyway, so you guys can see the lot in the background there. Um, and so I bought that lot, like I said, back in 2019 with the intentions of once I got the land paid off, I did seller financing, and it was 30,000 seller financing, and I put like initially 3,500 down, and then a couple months later I put another 5,000 down, so a total of 8,500. And then I was making monthly payments, and the seller had financed me for 30 years, even though I had no intention on taking 30 years to pay off the balance. But that was the terms, because I wanted to make sure I had the payments low enough to where it wouldn't be a burden to make the monthly payments, but the minimum payment at least. So it was financed. The remaining balance was financed over 30 years at 10%, which was kind of high, but I was okay with it because I was thinking I was going to be able to get it paid off fairly quickly, and then start the building process. So I went through Remax, by the way, and the Remax broker, he had been living, or he still lives in Belize actually, and he's got several offices throughout the country of Belize. And he's actually, I believe he's Canadian, but at any rate, so it was, I felt very comfortable with that, because Remax is an international company. They're all over the world. And so I would highly recommend that if you are thinking about or want to buy property, especially land in a foreign country outside of your country of residence, that you go with a real estate agent from a well-known company like a Remax, or at least a well-known company within that country, if nothing else. But at any rate, so that's what I did. And I had been to Belize multiple times before that, my ex and I, and that was kind of our dream, our plan was to retire over in Belize. Just love the country. I still love the country. It's a beautiful country, beautiful people. The food is great. It's a very laid back, chill environment, and the super huge plus is the fact that it's only a 2.5 hour flight from Houston, Texas. So, as most of you guys know who have been following me for quite some time, that I do have two children, two daughters. They're in their, well, one is in her mid-20s and the other one just turned 30 this year. So I wanted to be, close enough to where if they need me, or any other family member for that matter, immediate family especially, that it wouldn't be too much of an issue or a hassle to hop on a quick flight and get, come back to the States. So those were all of my reasonings behind choosing Belize. This particular lot that I bought, it was, I want to say, about 5,800 square feet. So not a huge lot, but it was big enough to where I would have been able to comfortably put um, maybe about three cottages, no more than between 600 to 800 square feet on it. And that was my initial thinking, along with maybe like a 6-person um, jacuzzi, in-ground jacuzzi or something like that in the middle, and then with like some seating area kind of um, throughout, or maybe each cottage would have had their own porches, screened-in porches. Actually stayed in a studio screened-in unit in Belize, um, around the same area. Well, not quite, but not too far from where the land was. And it was comfortable and everything, and it had like a little kitchenette and on all of that with a refrigerator and stuff. So that was kind of what I was thinking, but I was thinking maybe more so 2-bedroom units. That way it could accommodate um, more people, maybe like a family, maybe a couple with 2 kids or something like that, or maybe even 3 kids or something. So that was kind of what the thinking was. Now, in this particular area where this plot of land is at, it's in an area called Secret Beach, which now it's not really a secret anymore because a lot of people know about it, but that's still the name of it. And it's on the island of Ambergris Caye. Belize is made up of a bunch of little small islands, and they call them cays. Caye is how it's spelled. And so what you do is you fly into Belize City, that's the capital, and then you either can catch a water taxi or a little small commuter plane over to whatever island that you're going to be staying on. And so in my case, or in our case, we would fly into Belize City, and then we've done it both ways. We've caught a little commuter flight from Belize City to San Pablo, and we've also did the water taxi. The water taxi is way cheaper, but it does take a little bit longer. It's about an hour boat ride, 45 minutes to an hour boat ride to San Pablo versus the little commuter flight. It takes longer to get on board than it does the actual little flight. It's only about a 15-minute real quick flight over to San Pablo from Belize City. And then from there, you rent a golf cart, and because that's pretty much the main mode of transportation on the island is golf cart. They do have some small cars and small trucks, but I would say the golf carts outnumber the cars. So so you rent a golf cart typically, and then you ride the golf cart about 15 minutes from San Pablo over to the area where the land is, which is called Secret Beach. The reason why I liked the land over in Secret Beach is because on that side of the island, there is no seaweed. On the San Pablo side of the island, there's tons of seaweed, and they're constantly having workers go out there and kind of try to clean up as much of the seaweed as possible. So, all the seaweed makes it a little bit more challenging to really just lay on the beach and enjoy the beach because, seaweed, it smells. So, so that was one of the reasons why I like the Secret Beach area, because there's no seaweed over there. And the water is even more clearer than over on the San Pablo side. You can literally look down into the ocean and you can see the little small fishes, fishing, swimming around. And so that was my reasoning behind that. And I always said that I wanted to be able to live on beachfront property or close to the beach. This plot, it wasn't exactly, it wasn't on the beach, but it was only maybe about a half a mile away, which I felt like, okay, that's not, that's not too bad. I walk more than a half a mile on the treadmill. So, and when a cousin of mine and I would used to walk around town where we live at in the States for exercise, we would walk several miles. So a half a mile I figured wouldn't be no big deal. So, anyways, when I met Elijah, and then he had never been out of the country before, so um, that was our first like real big trip. We went over there. He liked it as well, and then when we got married, we went back for our honeymoon, and we had a good time. And then I started looking into what it would, take or cost to, build, the first cottage or whatever. Well, by this time, we're full force into the COVID scam, is what I call it. So, and then of course, inflation started kicking in everywhere, and it really affected it just as bad over in Belize as it has over here in the States, because they have pegged their Belizean dollar directly to the US dollar. So, which was one of the positive things that I had liked, at first. But then when inflation hit, it wasn't a positive thing anymore, because of the simple fact that by them pegging it to the US dollar, that stabilized their currency. So you never have to worry about, when you go to Belize, of pulling out your currency calculator or anything like that, because it's always 2 to 1, meaning that for every $1, it's 2 Belizean dollars. So you don't have to worry about, okay, how much does this cost, or how much is, coming from the US, how much is my dollar worth over in Belize? Well, it's 2 to 1. Okay. So it made the math real simple. That was another thing that I initially liked about the idea of eventually, moving over to Belize and living in Belize was, there was no issue with the money conversion. It's pretty simple and straightforward, 2 to 1. That's it. Regardless of what goes on in the Forex currency markets, and stuff. So that was the other thing. And then the third thing was the fact that they're on Central Standard Time. But I think it's a little bit different because we're on Central Standard Time here in the States. And I think it's still like 1 hour time difference. Let me just double check on that. I think it is, but I just want to double check to be sure. Time in Belize. Yeah. So, yeah, no, it's actually the same. So it's 5:56 there right now, and it's 5:56 here. So it's the same, that was the other thing that I liked. But they don't, when we spring forward for daylight savings, they don't. So that's when, if you go in the springtime, that's when you're going to see a difference. If you're in the central time zone in the States, that's when you'll see a difference, is that they don't spring forward. So they'll be 1 hour behind. But most of the time we're on the same time zone and everything. So there's no difference there. But anyways, I kind of got a little bit off track, but I felt like I needed to give all of that background information. But so anyways, I got the land surveyed and leveled out. I paid an architect to draw up the plans for the first cottage, and I paid for the land to be surveyed. So those were some of the first steps that you have to do with any construction or anything. You got to, have the land surveyed and leveled, and then you also have to have an architect um, write out all your building plans for you. And then my realtor at the time, he got some different price quotes for me on building. Whether it was I had him get me a quote for building traditional style Belizean home, and I think they're called Masonite homes, if I'm not mistaken. And then a quote for uh, up to basically American standards, and I wanted them to be on pretty high up post and pier, although I wasn't necessarily looking forward to stairs, but I wanted to have them up post and pier so that I could have somewhat of a view, because that was like one of my whole points or purposes of wanting to live over close to the beach, is to have a shot at being able to see it, or at least be able to see the nature and the trees and all of that. And if you're not kind of high up, then you're not really going to have much of a view. So so I had them get me estimates for both a traditional build, construction materials and all that, and US standard quality construction and materials. And before inflation kicked in, it was going to be very, very reasonable, very, very affordable. I think for a traditional style, it was going to be like I could get away with probably 30,000-40,000. And then for non-traditional US standards, maybe 60 to 80. So it's going to be, very, very reasonable. However, after inflation kicked in, all the money, excessive money printing, all the, giveaways that are, joke of the politicians have been doing with giving billions and billions of dollars to other countries and whatnot, and I had them, run the numbers. At that point, it was not going to be something that I was willing to do, or maybe I don't know. The prices just really, really went up a lot compared to what they initially were looking like before. And then we started watching a lot of YouTubers and influencers who were migrating over to other countries, whether that be countries over in Africa or Europe. And so then that we kind of changed and pivoted courses and directions. And at that point, I decided to have the realtor put the land up for sale. Just got it sold back in July of this year, 2024. It took a little over a year. I had gotten different offers throughout that time, and they all kept falling through. People ended up changing their mind, or we couldn't come to terms with how much they could put down and stuff like that. Because I still owed on it, I had to at least get enough up front to pay off the seller that I was buying the land from. In Belize, they don't allow, and I don't know if this is just for foreigners or if this is for everybody, but at any rate, they weren't going to allow me to do a loan with someone to buy it from me and not pay off completely the person that I still owed. So that probably was more of the challenge than anything, is that some of the people that did give me an offer or whatever, they either wasn't willing to or wasn't able to, and don't trip off of my nail that broke. That just happened today. But they wasn't either willing to or able to give me enough to at least pay him off. But luckily, I did eventually get a buyer who was able to, they gave me so much upfront, and then partway through, they did a 60-day escrow. And so partway through the escrow, they gave me another portion. And then after the 60 days, they gave me the rest and was able to completely pay off the seller. And we held the money in escrow. So it wasn't like they literally gave it to me, but it was all held in escrow. And then, at the closing, the escrow company, they paid off the person that I owed, and I got what was left after I paid my realtor commission. I didn't make any money off of it. I actually kind of lost money when you think about it, because all the interest that I had paid over the last almost 5 years. But, it's fine, whatever. It is what it is. And we've already moved on, and we're doing something else, which you guys that follow me, you see the videos we've been making, or I put up about what we've got going on now over in Kenya, which I'm going to do a more in-depth, several in-depth videos about that. So stay tuned for that. But anyways, so that's what happened and why we decided to sell the land in Belize, because the cost and of construction and whatnot, and the fact that they are tied directly to the US dollar. So it was gonna defeat the purpose in terms of diversification. I wasn't thinking about that at the time back in 2019 when I bought it. But now, because so much has changed in the US and throughout the world, it's become very apparent to me that you have to think about diversification, with your assets, and where you're deriving your income from, especially as we go into, those of us, Gen Xers are going, preparing, to go into retirement over these next, coming years, next 10 years, and so we got to really think about diversification outside of, the US. But anyways, that's another conversation for a different video. So that is why I decided to sell the land in Belize, and how I went about that, which was using a RE/MAX realtor, the same way I did when I bought it. All right. So until next time, guys, I hope you got something out of that. If nothing else, hopefully you were entertained. And until the next video, please, like and subscribe, comment. Let me know if you want to know more about what you need to do, what the steps are to buy land in Belize, or maybe what the process is to become a permanent resident, or whatever. Hit me up. Let me know in the comments. Like I said, like, share, and subscribe. And you could really help us both out if you're into making videos by hitting that QR code. That's a referral code for Restream. All right. Take care. Peace.